Okay, folks, so anyhow, I wanted to do a video that talks about one of my hobbies that I mentioned in the video that I put out a little bit ago, which talks about my 3 hobbies. And this one deals with beer. Now, I'm not going to actually brew beer today. I haven't brewed beer in probably about a year and a half now. But I will do a taste testing of 2 beers that Noelle got me. I'm only going to do one today, obviously. I'm not going to drink both of those. But I'm going to give you a idea of what my thoughts are on it. Now, with that said, I'm not an expert in beer making. It started off, as I mentioned, as a hobby, something that a friend of mine and I considered turning into a business once. That didn't actually go anywhere, but yeah, I mean, I kind of have an idea of what I'm looking for in terms of tastes. Definitely like porters and stouts. Wasn't really a big fan of IPAs, but I started to like those. IPAs really bothered me in terms of like my stomach would really get messed up with certain IPAs depending upon the hops that they use and how much hops that they have used. And then sometimes I get a headache from it too. So some of these IPAs have maybe 4 or 5 or more different hops in them. Typically they're going to have about 3 in there. Most beers will have just 2. So to give you a bit of an idea, you're going to have hops for bitterness, and then you're going to have hops for aroma. So those are going to be kind of your when you taste it, you're going to basically taste certain things, right? So, and you're going to smell certain things. So if you notice someone who drinks a lot of craft brews, they always sniff the glass first. And that's exactly what I do. I sniff first to see what's in it. If I can identify certain things. There's some people that can nail it. They can tell you exactly what type of grains were used. They can tell you what type of hops were used. They can taste it and tell you, yep, I can definitely tell you that that's what this is, and etc., etc. I don't have it like that at all. Now, when it comes to porters and stouts, I can definitely tell you, okay, this is an oatmeal stout just by sampling it. I can tell you one that's made out of coffee. I can tell you a milk stout. Those types of things I can do. But when it comes to some of these others that are like a wheat beer or whatever the case may be, I'm not good at telling you like all of what it is about. So anyhow, I wanted to get that disclaimer out there, but I'm going to basically show you the 2 beers that Noelle got me. Then I'm going to choose a glass here, and then we're going to do a sample taste test here to kind of give you my thoughts on what I think about it and if it's a good brand. This is by no means a endorsement of a product. Now here's one. Where's the other? Hold on. I got to dig it out. So, all right. So there's 2 of them, and so I'm thinking that, is this a company? Okay, this is a company out of Oregon. So here's the 2 different ones, right? So we have Hop Lava, which is this one here, so it's an IPA, and then we have Vaporizer, which is a dry hopped pale ale. Okay, so today what I'm going to do is, this one's 6% alcohol, by the way, and this one's 7%. If you understand anything about the IBUs or the bitterness unit, this ranks 75 and this ranks 55. So typically if it's an IPA, you're going to always have a lot more bitterness because, again, it goes back to the hops that I mentioned. You're going to add a lot of hops to it. This one here, when it talks about being dry hopped, when it talks about being dry hopped, it basically means that after you start the whole process of brewing and everything else, and it starts to ferment, you go back in and you dry hop it. Now, some people will dry hop right at the end when they add the yeast and everything else. Some folks will let it do its thing and start to basically, you see the bubbles coming out, and then they will throw the dry hops in, or the hops in, and that's what's called dry hopping. So yeah, that's basically, it depends on how you want to do it. I have not really dry hopped anything. Typically, I've never made an IPA at all. I have made several different pale ales back in the day. I've made several different stouts and several different porters and all of those types of things. Wheats, I've made several of those. but I've never actually dry hopped anything, and I've never made an IPA. So this makes this really great. So, what do I want to try first? I think that I'm going to try this one first. Okay, so now it's time to choose a glass. Now, it's important because I have two different ones, right? So I have this type of glass, and I have this, right? This type of glass, by the way, is for you to not, so it won't slip. Obviously with beers, I mean, they get very, very cold, and of course it's wet, slippery, so this keeps it from sliding out of your hands. Basically all it is. And this keeps you from actually freezing your fingers off, right? So I have this pretty cool little thing that Noelle got from her brother-in-law. So here's the cap, and I think it popped it, right? Let me do it again. Takes it off. Usually can do it with one hand. If I have it actually down on the table, I can do that. So actually now what I'm going to do is do the actual pour. I'm going to try to do this high. And I always like to pour it kind of at an angle and slow. Therefore, I can see what type of head it's going to have and how long that head retention is. If you just pour it right down the center, it's going to obviously froth up pretty high and that type of thing, right? So that's pretty good. So I'm going to look and see kind of how it works. And as you can see, it's a pale ale, right? It's going to be golden color. You can probably see me through it, that type of thing, right? You can see my fingers through it. That's a classic pale ale, right? Not a lot of head on it. Head space would be the white froth and foam at the top. So let me take a actual sip of this and see what it's like. Let me first smell it. And it smells exactly like a pale ale. If you've done several of those, you know what they actually smell like. Alright, so I had to get on my daughter. She was singing very, 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 very loud. So I was about to sing what she was singing. So anyway, so it smells exactly like what you would smell what a pale ale should smell like. Now as far as hops, have no clue. Don't know. You know, there's several people who will be able to smell this and be able to tell you exactly what type of hop was used and all of that type of stuff. Not here. I have no clue. And I'm going to try to taste it and see what they actually used in it to get a better idea. Okay? It's pretty good. This is actually pretty good. So, let's see if it says anything here on the bottle, what it actually has. Okay, so it says featuring a locally grown hop variety and our house Pilsner malt. Okay, so it's a Pilsner type malt. This is a dry hop pale ale, light colored, alluringly herbal, and supremely tasty. So that's all it tells you. It doesn't tell you what type of hops that they actually used or anything like that. Probably a Cascade type of hop, I'm thinking, or a Centennial. It kind of tastes like that. Cascades are typically a little bit more is what's used in this area. This company's out of Oregon, so I would say probably a Cascade. They also have Olympia. There's several different types of hops. And there's some that will use two different hops for the bitterness, as I mentioned, and for the aroma. So for the flavor, I should say, and also for the aroma. And then they will go back in and they will dry hop either with the same type of hop that they use for the flavor, or they will use something else that will complement it. So therefore, it kind of throws you off. But I'm thinking they use the same hop for the flavoring and also for dry hopping, because that's what you have to do. It has to be done during the actual brewing process when you first do everything, and then the dry hop, as I mentioned, happens afterwards. But let me see. It's really good. This is actually really, really good. It's not a beer that at 6%, it doesn't feel like it's 6%. It's kind of a beer that you would not want to Well, anyhow, I just got the giggles for no reason. It's pretty strong. Alright, sorry about that. So, yeah, it's pretty strong for me because I haven't actually done a lot of drinking in the past. So now, pretty much anything, and I'm like, whoo. But taking big sips like that, probably not a good idea if you're not someone who drinks a lot. Like I said, it's been a while for me, but it's actually a pretty good drink. I'd say I'd give it definitely a thumbs up, not 2 thumbs up at all. Definitely a thumbs up. Now, there are some out here, if you go to the lodge here in Seattle, they have a lot of really good beers on tap, over 60 different beers, I think, if not more. And they have an actual Irish stout that is just insane. It's really, really good. That one definitely deserves more than 2 thumbs, but it's a solid 2 thumbs up. I would give this one definitely a thumbs up. Not bad at all. It's pretty good. It's a good sipping beer, obviously. A good beer for watching the game, to eat some wings with, that type of thing. But it's not something that I'm like, oh, you know, definitely my go-to. Now, obviously, it beats the pants off of any sort of, you know, commercially packaged product like Bud, Miller, all those, Corona. So it's really, really good in that aspect, but it's not something, in my opinion, that is the top tier. It's definitely really, really good. Would I buy it again? I would buy it again, definitely. And I think their product is pretty good. Also, Pyramid here in Seattle is another brewery that actually makes stuff. All of their stuff is really, really good. But I would have to say that this company out of Oregon, most of the Pacific Northwest companies make really, really good beer. The one knockoff beer that we have is called Rainier. And I'll do a taste test on that so you can have an idea. You may be able to find that or this beer where you are, not really sure. But anyhow, got all the giggles and everything out of the way. Never did a drink while on camera, so it's kind of awkward. But hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, I'll see you. Take care.